Hey, Tooth and Corners, it's Jonathan Van Horn here again today to talk about something that's going to seem fluffy and kind of odd, but I promise it's going to be one of the more powerful tools that you're going to look at, and you're going to be happy you did this in a few years. And that's reflection. It's looking back over what's happened. Now, before you roll your eyes thinking this is like going to be a meditation session, it's not. Just stick with me. This is about practical, actionable ways to learn from your experience and grow your practice, as well as just getting better at business and understanding life and how you interact with your business. Now, you've probably heard the saying, what gets measured gets managed. It's a popular business mantra for a reason, but here's the thing. Sometimes it's not about tracking numbers. Sometimes it's tracking things that are like your experiences. And those experiences can teach you things. That reflection can go beyond data and can dive into the lessons hidden in your day-to-day operations. And when I first started my business, Tooth and Coin, I was kind of bad at reflecting. I was always like moving forward, doing this, let's get better, let's do this, let's do that, chasing that next milestone and checking the next box. If that sounds familiar, the reason was because I measure success by like how many returns do we process? I measured it by things like how many new clients did we get in, or like how many team members did we add, or what was our capacity and all these other types of things. How much did we save money in taxes for our clients? But things that I didn't measure, I didn't even think to measure them, were just as important, but I never even thought about them. I may have thought about them in the moment. Thinking about them in that moment meant that they were gone today. I don't remember what those moments were. So I didn't ask questions to myself like, how did this workload impact my team or me? Or like, was the team and the clients really satisfied with how the things were handled? They just weren't on my radar, and they weren't things for me to think, to consider, because I was so busy doing the stuff, I couldn't take time to think of those things. I didn't take the time to consider the bigger picture. And as a result, I missed out on opportunities to improve, not just our processes, but also our overall happiness and effectiveness. That time is now gone, but it taught me something valuable, and that is that reflection isn't about looking back, it's about setting yourself up for a better future. Now, I know what you might be thinking, Jonathan, I can barely keep up with what's on my to-do list today. Where am I going to find time for reflection? And here's the good news. You don't have to do it every day. Start small. Commit to reflecting monthly, quarterly, or even twice a year, annually. It doesn't matter. Just pick some frequency and think of it like a GPS for your business. You wouldn't cross the country without checking the map occasionally, would you? Now, it's the same thing with your practice. You need to know if you're still on the right path. And again, this isn't necessarily from like I'm going to make $1 million this year because that was what the goal I set for 5 years ago. It's more along the lines of like, hey, am I okay with what's going on in my business? Do I feel okay? Do my team members feel okay? Are my patients feeling okay? The qualitative elements of things are so important, and we just don't do that very much. Let's talk about what we should be reflecting on. And again, in dentistry, we're trained to look at production, collections, new patients, case acceptance rates, all those types of things. And yeah, those numbers are important because at Tooth and Coin, we analyze hundreds of different dental practices' financials every month. And those metrics do tell a story, but here's the kicker. Those numbers don't tell you how you feel at the end of the day. Again, they don't tell how your team feels or any of those other pieces of it. So it's almost like it's a missing chapter. Isn't it funny how much time and energy we spend tracking those numbers, but we just forget about things like asking ourselves whether we're actually happy. Now, as a CPA firm, we rarely bring these kinds of conversations to the table with our clients, but that doesn't make them any less important. It's things that you should be considering. So in fact, these are often the insights that can lead to the most meaningful changes, both in business as well as in life. When we think about the penultimate business people like Warren Buffett, he once said that you can't buy more time. Jeff Bezos once said that work-life harmony is more important than work-life balance. And these are billionaires who still remind us that no matter how much money we make, we can't buy any more happiness or any more energy. Let's bring this home with a hypothetical example. Imagine Dr. Sarah, a dentist who's just crushing her production goals. But when she starts reflecting monthly, she notices something off. The days that she feels the most strained aren't necessarily her busiest days, but it's the days that has the procedures that she doesn't enjoy doing. So by adjusting her schedule to balance those procedures, her energy could improve and her team will do better, and there will just be this downtail effect of everything. Same numbers, but better experience. Or consider that a practice that's tracking traditional metrics like production per visit and collections, but when they start reflecting quarterly on team and patient feedback, they notice that their top referrals come from patients who felt cared for, not just from like high-ticket procedures. And that's the kind of insight you just don't get it from a spreadsheet. And if you forget to ask those questions and think about those questions, you're not going to remember that you had those thoughts or energy issues going on. So let's talk about the right types of questions. The power of reflection isn't just in doing it, it's about asking the right questions. So I'm going to share a really powerful list of reflection questions that I saw Dr. Christian Mullen put in a few places on the internet that Measure success beyond what just numbers do. But before I do, I want you to do something for me. And yes, I want you to do this right now. If you're driving, you can do this when you park. But I want you to choose how you're going to capture these reflections. And here are a few actionable ways to get this started. First, one that I really like is to create like a recurring calendar event. So open up your favorite calendar app, create an event titled Reflections or Practice Reflection. Set it to be a monthly recurring item or quarterly recurring item, however many times you want to do it. And each time the event occurs, use the notes section to jot down your answers to these questions. So like in the calendar event, put edit, description, put these questions down. And then whenever the calendar event comes up, you just click on the calendar event and hit edit. And then I'll ask those questions. You answer the questions there, hit save, and it will be logged. Then the next time you do it, the next month comes around, you do the same thing. You just answer the questions with what you feel and think at that moment in time. And then you can compare that calendar event to the prior calendar event, and you've got that log there. We're not talking about anything super crazy here. I think that's a really simple but effective way of doing it. Another possibility is there's a lot of digital note-taking apps like Evernote, Notion, OneNote. They're really great for organizing reflections. So just create a dedicated space inside of there called Practice Reflections or whatever, and just add a new entry for each session. You can use tags or categories to make it easy to review past. One that Dr. Christian shared was to send yourself an email. If simplicity is your thing, send yourself an email with the questions, snooze it for a future date as a reminder to reflect on that again, and add new responses directly to the same email so to keep everything in one place. So you can just have a constant log. Think about that. Think about doing that for 2 years. And if you do it once every 6 months, you've got 4 entries into that thing. You're going to see some stuff happening on there. You're going to see reflections of how you're changing and things felt. You're going to notice things like, hey, I didn't like this. And if you notice that thing and you say, hey, that thing's on there 3 times, maybe you should spend some time and energy trying to fix it. So these are really important things. Like maybe it's things like, I don't enjoy hiring. Okay, maybe I should look at getting an office manager that's good at hiring. This thing drained a lot of energy from me. It's a way to improve your business and improve your life. Another practical way is like start a spreadsheet. So for those who love structure, you can set up a spreadsheet with columns and things like that. Each row can represent a different reflection period, which allows you to track patterns over time. And the thing is whichever of these methods that you choose, the goal is to make the reflection easy, consistent, and actionable. So if you want to, pause this episode if you need to, set it up, and we'll be here. Okay, so you're back. Again, this comes from Dr. Christian Mullen. He had a fantastic post on a few different places on the internet about this, and I think they're great questions. I'll give you some examples of those. So you can write these down and use these as things to come up with. And those questions are like, what am I most proud of? Who inspires me? Why do they inspire me? What does my ideal morning look like? What would I tell my future self / childhood me? Statements like, I am grateful for. I need more generosity in my life because. What do I want most in life? Where do I see myself in 6 months? What is one important lesson I learned this week? What are your current 5 favorite songs? I know that sounds like an odd one, but I think that's a great one because it does change too. If you could live anywhere, where would it be? If I had $1 million, I would. What are 10 things that make me happy? If I could travel anywhere, where would I go and why? The person I am most thankful for is, do you have any regrets? Something I hope to achieve in the next 5 years is, what was your favorite trip? Would you change anything about yourself? Which quality do you value the most in a person? What experience are you most thankful for? What do you appreciate about your life? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? If I could wish for anything, I would wish for, what am I afraid of? I want people to think of me as, what type of legacy do I want to leave behind? So thanks to Dr. Christian for all of those questions. Now we're going to consider ways to tailor these for your practice for some additional ideas and concept and questions. Things like, what am I most proud of in my practice over the last quarter? Which challenges did we as a team overcome and what did we learn from them? These are great things also to get feedback from your team about too, and ask your questions to your team too. How has my energy level been and what contributed to that? Are there areas where I've been overextending myself or my team? What's one thing I can adjust to improve my quality of life as an owner? How is my team's morale and engagement? What's the feedback that they've been giving me? Are my patients truly satisfied? What's the tone of their feedback? And by the way, if you're not tracking your patient's feedback, you should. What's one area of the practice that's running smoothly and why? If I could change one thing about my practice tomorrow, what would it be? What's my long-term vision for the practice and am I on track to achieve it? And again, reflection doesn't have to be complicated, but it does need to be intentional. So whether you're jotting down answers into a notebook or sharing them in a team meeting, these questions can help you uncover insights that will fuel growth, both for your practice and for yourself. Another example of a practical way to be able to do this is if you don't want to do the calendar thing, the tech hack thing, go to your calendar, set a calendar event, copy and paste the link to this podcast, and have it come up every 6 months. And just play back the podcast episode and preferably record your answers to this, but maybe just play it back and think about these questions and think back on them over the last 6 months. That's a lower tech version way of doing it, but it is something that could potentially help you. If you find some of these questions are interesting and you can think of the value of it, then that's another way to be able to do this as well. But for maximum effectiveness, you should log your answers so you can look at your prior answers. We mentioned earlier what gets measured gets managed. This is a way to measure your personal quality of life, your personal way you're looking at life. And it's a mental health thing. And mental health is a real thing you've got to work on and you got to practice and be intentional about. So I think it's a good thing to work on. So this is a shorter episode of the Tooth and Coin podcast, but remember, growth isn't just about the numbers. It's about finding harmony in how you run your practice as well as your life. So until next time, take a step back, reflect, and keep building the practice you've always dreamed of. Thanks again for being a Tooth and Coiner. I'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in to the Tooth and Coin podcast. If you found value in today's episode, please share it with a fellow dentist or a practice owner who could benefit. Your word of mouth helps us spread financial wisdom throughout the dental community. So until next time, keep building that thriving practice.